What a bizarre, what an intriguing spring training when you're losing, I think it's 19 players for the WBC, which could last as long as 28 days. I guess it's depending on how long that team lasts. But I know it's happened before, but this is really fascinating, and it opens up a lot of potential playing time for some players.
Well, for Paul DeJong, for one, Jordan Walker was going to get his anyway. And I don't think Tyler O'Neill and the Canadian team are going to last too long in their bracket, but they might. So I think, there's going to be a lot of guys get a chance to play. And I don't know. That's a long time to be away from your club. And that's why these guys are reporting early. They can work out this week. They don't have to leave till about the, 5th or 6th or so of March. So it gives them about 2.5 weeks maybe to work out. And then they got maybe, even if those teams go all the way, like not just the United States team, but you've got Nutbar playing for Japan and Edmund playing for Korea, and those two teams are likely to be in the Final Four too. That goes up to March 21st. They're only going to have 4 or 5 days left after that.
So last night on Sports Plus, we had Ali Marmol, and the question was about Jordan Walker, and he says, well, everybody likes the shiny new toy. I'm wondering, do you think, like, if there is a depth chart right now, that depth chart looks like Carlson in center, Nutbar in right, and O'Neill in left? Is that the way you think they see it right now?
Right now, yeah. And you have Donovan could play left or right if you choose to use Gorman at second base, let's say. You've got Yepes could play left or right. But the three you just named would be the winner book favorites so far.
What if, while Tommy Edman is gone, Paul DeJong is out of sight at shortstop and looks like the Paul DeJong, the 30 home run hitting shortstop? Then you got a real issue because you'd want to move Edman to second, and then you got Donovan and Gorman watching. I know one of them could be a DH. It'd be a nice problem to have, and I guess it's possible, correct?
Yeah, and you're going to have, before Edman leaves, they start a little sooner overseas there, so you might have, I would play those guys together as much as I could early on. I'd play DeJong at short and Edman at second just to see before Edman leaves. I'd like to get 5 or 6 games of those guys together because you're only going to have 3 or 4 when they come back. But yeah, they're young. They can make that move. I think you're still going to have Edman at short and Donovan / Gorman at second, and DeJong as a utility guy, unless DeJong really tears it up. And he tore it up last spring too, and that didn't work out very well.
If you had to guess right now, don't you think that DH situation is looking like a platoon, Gorman from the left side and Yepes from the right side?
That'd be a guess right now. And you have Goldschmidt and Arenado, for instance, got quite a few at-bats, notably Goldschmidt, as DHs last year, just to take them off the field for a game or two at maybe every couple weeks. So that's going to be a fluid situation, but Yepes and Gorman would seem to figure to have the most at-bats at that position. Yeah, I don't know. Most teams don't have that regular DH like Big Papi used to be or Nelson Cruz has been for a long time. But, you're going to see 6, 7, 8 guys in there.
Yeah, the Gorman situation, I think, is fascinating because normally if you had a guy who was 22 and just hit 30 professional home runs, you'd be saying, hey, this guy is our starting second baseman. He's getting 550 at-bats because he's a first-round draft choice, a slugger. He's our phenom. But with Gorman, it's looking like the best-case scenario is like a platoon DH spot.
Well, unless he ends up playing second base and you've got Donovan playing in the outfield somewhere, you could do that. Donovan could be a regular outfielder still. So I don't know if I'd limit Gorman just to second base. I wouldn't mind seeing Gorman take some turns in the outfield, but I haven't heard that talked about.
Yeah. Jordan Walker, do you think he'll start the season on the big league club?
Only if he has a big spring, and he might. But he hasn't played AAA ball yet. I would expect to see him sometime early in the season if he would start the season in the minors and do well there. But they've got legitimate outfielders on their club now. It's like they don't have anybody that can play there. They do. If he's better than those guys, then you use him. But he's going to have to show that he is better than those guys right now.
I don't know if you heard the Wainwright soundbite we had the other day that he was ticked off that he was looking at some kind of baseball preview magazine and they ranked the top 100 pitchers in the National League, and he wasn't on there. He goes, I got to believe I'm in the top 100, okay? Your reaction to that?
I hadn't heard that. He's got to be in the top 50 or 60, I would think. I mean, certainly 100. But if you take 100, that's only – if you have 13 per team times 15 teams, that's about 190 pitchers. He's certainly better. He's in the top third of pitchers, I would think, in the league. Yes.
How quickly, or do you think before the end of spring training, Miles Mikolas is locked up long term?
Well, that could happen, sure. And I'm sure they'd explore that with Montgomery a little bit. But Montgomery hasn't been around long enough maybe to know if he likes it long term or not. Mikolas does like it. He grew up in Jupiter. He could, sign a 2 or 3, maybe even a 4-year deal and spend the rest of his career spring training at home. And I would expect that to happen sooner than later. But they'll explore that with Montgomery at some point. Wainwright, they don't have to explore it. And Flaherty, that's going to be a long process there. There's no reason to bother right now.
I wonder if there is a scenario where Flaherty is Flaherty from 2019, and he's just out of sight if they try to lock him up. But if you're Jack Flaherty and you're having this great season, it makes no sense, right? You'd want to play it out and see and get the best possible offer from when you have 30 different teams in the pool.
That makes the most sense to me for him to think that way. He's from California. You got to think those California teams, Southern California especially, would be in line to try to sign him. But if you show him enough money, he doesn't dislike St. Louis. He may like it better on the West Coast, but there's so many balls in play. Let's see him have a good year first.
Are you confident of that, or what's your gut?
I'm optimistic. I can't say I'm confident. I mean, he hasn't had an entirely good season yet. He had a great end of 19. He had a great first half of 21, and he had a pretty good 18. 20, not very good. 22, not very good. So let's see a whole season. So I'm optimistic but not confident.
All right. Which, in terms of these rosters, are all these rosters better than the Cardinals roster? Dodgers, Padres, Braves, Mets, Phillies.
The first 4 probably. I don't know what the Phillies is. They've got some holes there. They once teams figured out how to pitch them. I mean, even the Phillies didn't exactly mug the Cardinals in that playoffs. And one game was, 2-0, and the other game they were scoreless until the 7th or 8th. So they didn't exactly destroy them with their offense. The Phillies strike out a whole bunch, even a lot more than the Cardinals do. So I take those first 4. I don't know if the Phillies' pitching depth is any better than the Cardinals. Maybe their top 2 guys are, but you take it down the line. I don't think the Phillies are a better team. The Phillies weren't competing for anything all season long. They got into the playoffs as a wild card. They never challenged for the division lead in that division ever. So I don't think they were that good. Now, they got better with Trey Turner, but I guarantee you Carl Schwarber's not going to hit 46 home runs again.
What about the impact of this story, which is in the Post-Dispatch, today? It was a Bloomberg report that the company that owns the regional television package for the Cardinals is heading towards bankruptcy. So the Cardinals and Blues, those games are on Bally Sports Midwest, one of 19 regional sports networks nationwide, and they're going bankrupt, and how this financially could hurt the Cardinals in particular.
Well, it could hurt a lot of teams in particular. You're talking about small and mid markets for the most part there. You're not talking about New York or Chicago or Los Angeles or even Boston, which have, bigger networks as far as what the finances are. Yeah, it'd be a big part of the Cardinals' operating budget is not to have that as much TV money. So this is going to be a little process to play out here, but that would inhibit a lot of teams from being able to spend as much as they want to keep up with the teams in the big cities.
In particular, the Cardinals, though, right? Don't they get a higher percentage of their income than many teams off the local broadcast?
Probably. Of course, they get a higher percentage on home attendance, too, than most teams. So I don't know. Valley Sports is not exactly on solid footing here. That appears to be the case. And this can be worked out. There may have to be some other way of charging consumers for telecast, and maybe people will pay more to get them in the long run. I don't know. It depends how much they really want them.
All right. What was your takeaway from the Super Bowl last night, Commish?
It was a wonderful game. I thought going in that Mahomes was a transcendent player and should be the difference in the game. I didn't think Hurts would play as well as he did, but he did hand Kansas City one touchdown there just by changing hands with the ball and dropping it. That was the game. I mean, no matter what happened before or after that, he gave him 7 points.
Yeah, and actually, the Eagles should have given him 14 points because I thought it was a catch, and he made a step with the ball. I thought that could have been a second touchdown. Can you imagine a defensive player, Nick Bolton from Mizzou, scoring 2 touchdowns in a Super Bowl? I don't understand that call, by the way. How about yourself?
Well, I thought it was a pretty good call. I watched it a bunch of times on replay. I don't know if one step was enough. I think maybe 1.5 to 2 steps would make more sense to me. I thought it was an incomplete pass when I saw it live, and then the officials called it the other way. So usually they must have some strong evidence to reverse that call. And but it could have been 14 points right there. That was the only turnover. The only turnovers of the game would be those two: the one that counted, and the one that didn't count. The Chiefs didn't have any.
And even though Mr. Bradbury did admit to tugging on the jersey, I don't know if I would have made that call. What'd you think?
It wasn't much of a call, and I don't know that it disturbed the play that much. Now, you assume that the Chiefs will kick that field. It's a little longer field goal, but very, very makeable for on 4th down there. But that gives the Eagles almost 2 minutes to come back and get 3 points of their own. Now, the Eagles, they look at themselves. They had to use one of those timeouts when the play clock ran out on them. Nobody talks about that. You got to say in a tight game like that, you can't be spitting out timeouts in the middle of a quarter because you don't get the play off. You don't have that kind of luxury. You got to have all your timeouts at the end.
Good stuff, Commish. We'll talk soon. Hope to see you in spring training, sir.
You bet.
All right, the Hall of Famer Rick Hummel joining us on the Hollywood Casino Press Box. How would you like to be an Eagles fan? They joined the Falcons, I believe, as the only team, the 2016 Falcons, to blow a double-digit lead at halftime of a Super Bowl. And just their whole the whole city of Philadelphia and just kind of their heartbreak and lack of championships in all sports. They seem to be a little bit just struck by bad luck. I mean, you had this quarterback having this magnificent game and you have a lead at halftime by 10. But they
just win the game. You're right.
So they won the one Super Bowl a few years ago.
With Nick Foles.
But it's been a long time for the Flyers, a long time for the 76ers. Go back to Moses Malone.
Mm-hmm.
And then baseball-wise, you had one.
You had one.
Yeah. So,
but still, you're right about that, yeah.
Did you see one feature before the game that there's a Kansas City Chiefs bar in Philadelphia?
Yes, I saw that.
And the guy bought it with the money he made on betting on the Chiefs, so he decided to make it a Chiefs bar. But they closed the bar down yesterday. They didn't want to risk, I guess.
Smart move, yeah.
Yeah. But, man, the money you gave up by not having that bar open on Super Bowl Sunday. So
yeah, you're right, because if you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan and you won that game and you're in Philly, you're going to that bar, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's going to that bar. You're right.
But there could have been violence.
Yes, for sure. Yes.
Hope they have insurance.
Yeah. Philly had to put out the riot police after they lost, so things were going pretty crazy even with the loss in Philly.
Oh, I didn't really see the video.
I didn't see the video either. I read the article that they had to get some police out there. People were pretty upset at the loss.
There was a great stat going into that game that since the year 2000 that there have been 8 quarterbacks who won the MVP and then lost the Super Bowl. So you have to go back to Kurt Warner, who won it in '99. So Mahomes ended an 8-0 streak there by being the MVP.
That's interesting.
Still winning the Super Bowl.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.